Okay, recording has started. So yeah, welcome to today's tutorial. So we'll be finishing up the question paper. It's just a small part of the question paper. So let me open the memo that we made and then stretch here. And then double click the CBP file. And then, okay, let me go to view and then manager. Okay, so I have two projects open. So let me close one. So arrays and pointers, let me close that project. And then zombie space, and then the header file. So let's see. Yeah, we have an update function. Perfect. So we're going to put the code inside the update function. So the code for this, it's somewhat not too bad, but is also bad at the same time. So it's something else. So let me see. So we do move all these zombies, right? So I'm not sure after moving. I think we can do it after moving the zombie, right? Yeah, I think you can do it after moving all the zombies. Because they said when it becomes when it enters one cell radius of the position of the player. By one cell, they mean square radius. If you guys still remember square radius, we did discuss about it. So let's say this is your player, right? In red, that's your player. And then the black dots, these are coordinates, right? Or point or empty, let's just say empty locations around the player. So this is what we call the square radius, right? So they say that if it's within the square radius of the player, then it starts following the player. I don't know, like what was going on in their head when they're coming up with that question, but yeah, that question it meant serious, it meant serious business. And it's a mock test, so it's most likely going to be like this in the semester test tomorrow. So we have this, right? Let's just assume, right? Let's look at, I'm just assuming, but in the sense of columns, right? The coordinates, because I want us to come up with the formula on how to make the zombies follow the player. So let's say this is okay, this is real bad, but then this is 0, column 1, column 2, row 0, row 1, row 2, right? So these are the coordinates that we're going to use here. So let's say this is the player, right? So this player, if there's a should follow. Yeah, they say the zombie should follow the player. Hey, this question is quite challenging. This yeah, I never guys, please mute. That just threw me off. But yeah, let's continue. So you have the player's position in red, right? So let's say this is okay, let me use the yellow. Let's say this is a zombie, right? Z. This is a zombie. And then this is another zombie here, right? How can we make these two zombies follow the player? So to make it follow the player, I think you basically move in the direction in which the player is moving. In this case, the zombie can either move into this location over here, or let's just assume the player has moved from here. So I'm gonna put black here. So let's say the player moved and is now here. So obviously we need to move this zombie and this zombie closer to the player. So I can either move this zombie over here, I can move it in this location, or I can move it in the location where the player was. And then I move this into this location over here, right? This into this location over here. You see that it's following, it's going closer and closer to the player. But then the thing is, I don't know what general formula can you apply I get the logic, I get what's being asked, but to translate this to code, yeah, this was asking a bit too much here. You see this part over here. The zombies move whenever the player moves into a cell containing a potion, the player's health is increased by a random number. Yeah, but then the thing is, they were supposed to mention it here somewhere about following the player and all those things. They're supposed to mention it somewhere here. And let me see. At each iteration, each existing zombie must move one cell in a random location, including diagonals. One cell. Yeah, I think I see what's going on here. The player moves. Yeah, me for my assumption, right? Because when they talk about this part of it, this is just introduction. And then under initialization, under movement, under update, they give more information. Me, what I think is that this part over here, that the second bullet under update, it says at each iteration, each existing zombie must move one cell in a random direction, including diagonals. And then a zombie cannot move into. So technically, you'd say that it does actually follow the player, technically. I think we did actually answer this part over here. Yeah, I think this is what I think because most of the time when they give you more information here, right, they give more explicit information down here. So they did talk about moving the zombies, and if you check here, if the zombie is in the one cell radius, and we are move if you check the question, they say we must move in one cell. So we're moving in terms of cells, right? In terms of square radius. That's how we are moving the zombies. So they are actually technically following the player. So I think we've actually answered the question for this part about movement. If I think that's the case. So what I would do is I would try to do the design. I don't know how they want you to do the design. I don't know if it's still this. I think it's still the same. So program design. Hey, this design. Were they specific? They're supposed to be specific. Where's the part about design? Or the UML must model the zombie. Yeah, like I said, you can't do the whole design. It's too long. So you see, they say the UML, the design, it must model the zombie update logic. It means your UML will only focus inside the update function. So you can ignore all the other functions. Your main focus is the update function. That's the only UML you do. And then you submit and you're done. You get your 10 marks. That's what they're saying in the question paper. So the update. So since we're not going to do a lot of things in the I'll get to you. Since we're not going to do a lot of things with the design, which is actually very good. It's convenient. We don't have to do, if you still remember Deer, right? When you open Deer, let me wait for it to load. I don't know if it's Deer. I think it's Deer, right? Remember you have this circle here, which represents start and end and things like that. You technically not gonna you're not gonna have that because they don't want to see a flow diagram. They actually want to see like how do I put it? Oh yeah, you must specify variables that you've used. You can also specify that variables that you've used inside the function. You can also specify that. But then, yeah, I don't think they want all those extra stuff. But remember, you don't have time. They don't want any fancy stuff. They just want you to write all of this code in UML form, meaning in a language in pseudocode. We call this pseudocode, meaning in a language in between English and C++. So it's not fully English and it's also not fully C++. That's what we call pseudocode. It's in between. So that's the language you must use. So basically, you must translate all these loops or all the code inside the update function to that language, which is pseudocode. So I'm gonna use Microsoft Word for that. So what was your question? You can ask your question. Is it Ayabulela? Oh, who was that asking? Someone raised their hand. Yeah, Ayabulela, are you talking? All right, because there's no sound coming. Okay, and do me so you can ask your question, but it seems like Ayabulela is having issues.
Okay, so like my question is, okay, like let's just say like you fail to code the update function. So like are you allowed to see when the it design?
Yeah, you're allowed as long as maybe you let me make a practical example. Let's say you were coding, right? And then you ran out of time, but you know the code inside the logic, or you know at least the flow, which you're gonna start by this and then go through all the columns, go through all the low rows, then do an if statement. If you know all of that, you should definitely do the design. Because even if you lose it, at least those marks you lost those marks on the code, but you can just get back those marks on the design. So that's what I would advise you to do. I
Okay,
hope.
thanks.
Okay. Ayabulela. I hope now we should be able to hear you. Yeah, still no sound, Ayabulela. We can't hear you. Anguva too. Can't hear you, Sham. You'd have to type. Try typing. So let me do a pop-up here. Type here, right? So type the question there. While you're typing the question, me, I'll be doing the UML. So the way, like I said, this question paper, right? It's not too deep. It's not that deep, man. Remember, you have 3 hours or 3 hours. It has to be 3 hours. You're possibly not gonna have all the time in the world to do a fancy design. Okay, yeah, I can hear you now. Okay, what was your question?
So you can hear me if you get Ayabulela say.
Yeah, I can hear you. What's up?
Understand the part where a zombie has to follow a player.
Uh, like I said, technically you did answer it. This part, remember they said the zombie must move one cell in a random location. One cell, which means square radius. So it is actually indeed following the player. So let me show you an example. So this is the player over here, and then let's say this is the zombie, right? Technically it is following technically.
But
Yeah,
when we run, it's not following the player.
it's not following the player. Yeah, I'm thinking about it. Like technically it might, because it's random. It might follow, it might not follow. So yeah, the thing is, let me just put it this way there. I don't think it's worth worrying about that part too much. I don't think it's worth worrying about that part too much because
It might not
it's
be worth worrying about it, but like when you practice previous question papers, most of the question papers they say that a player or a robot has to follow the player. So that's why we want to like know if
uh,
like when we check ST2 paper A 2024.
let me check. So it seems like they like that question. Then let me check.
Something.
Yeah, yeah, and yesterday Dr. Stung like did at least like show us an example of how to attempt that question. Like we will first calculate the distance and then we'll have the if statements within.
But that Dr. Stu was, for example, was so hard to understand. He did something hard to
Yeah, that's why I do.
Oh, I think. mm, Let me think.
This one said that
2022.
2024, 2024 ST2 paper A assessment and assessment over.
2024. I don't have 2024. I don't. Let me see. Do I have 2024? I have ComSci 2A 2024. Practical. I don't see it. I don't remember 2024. I remember ComSci 2A though, but I don't remember ComSci 1A. I don't think I have. I only have like 2023. You see, this is the papers that I have. There's no 2024 here. So yeah, I don't have that. So I guess maybe he started introducing it is from 2024. Because when I look at these question papers, there's no such questions about following. So I guess he's the one introduced that. So let's see how you can possibly attempt this. It talked about distance formula. Yeah, you can use distance formula. I think that's the one that will work. Let me see. The distance between the point. That kind of seems like a very clever approach when I think about it. Let me see. So let me put the other coordinates. Let me put here, and then here, and then here, and then yeah, I'll also put another zombie down there. So zombie here, and then right, and then empty location, right? So this would be row 0, column 1, column 0, column 1, column 2, row 0, row 1, row 2, right? So let's say the player, which is the red part, the player, he moved from here to here, right? To this location over here, right? So this is the player. So according to Dr. Stung, he says you must calculate the distance. The distance between the two, yeah. What I would do, right? Let me see. I would try to calculate. It would be, the thing is, if I try to use that like midpoint theorem, if I try to do that, that might not necessarily work. Let's see. So this is row 2, column 2. I mean row 0. So this is the coordinate 0, 2, right? We're only using one zombie's location, and then this one is 2, 2. So it's 2, 2, right? So let's say we are using the midpoint theorem, right? I know what it talks about distance. Let's say we're using midpoint. So obviously, no midpoint, it's x1 plus x2 divided by 2, comma, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. In this case, x is 0 and 2. So this is my x's, right? These values over here. This represents the x values. So 0 plus 2 is equals to 2 divided by 2 is 1. So I know the row is going to be row 1. So the row is going to be this row over here. So let me use green. So I know that my zombie will now be placed inside this row. What about the column? The column would be, let's say 2 plus 2 divided by 2 will be 1. No, 2 plus 2, maths. 2 plus 2 is 4 divided by 2 is 2. So it's 1, 2, right? So the coordinate is 1, 2. Let me see. Does that make sense? Yeah, 1, 2. Yeah. Yeah, I think this midpoint theorem might be onto something. So 1, 2, this is 1, column 2. So the coordinate is right here. So I moved the zombie to here. You see that it's moving closer to this. The player is moving closer. Let's try this one before we conclude that maybe midpoint might be working. Let's try a different one. Let's try a different zombie. So let's say this zombie over here, its coordinate. No, my bad. You see, meds. No, it's just me not seeing. This is 2, 0. This is column 0, column 2 to column 0. So this would be 1, 1. Yeah, 1, 1, which is basically here. You see that it's actually moving closer towards. Yeah, I think midpoint is actually like cool. Like midpoint is like the proper one. I think midpoint is cool. We can use midpoint. For me, that's what I'm seeing, midpoint theorem. So let's try this coordinate over here now. So this is 2, 2, right? So the zombie is at 2, 2. And then the player is at column 2, column 0, row 2. So I'm using midpoint 2 plus 2, right? This 2 plus 2 is 4 divided by 2 is 2. So we know we're going to put it in row 2. Row 2, column 1. So row 2. So this is row 2, right? Over here. Column 1 is basically this coordinate. So you see, it moved closer to the player. For me, right? That's what I'm seeing. That's the easiest way to go about it, like using midpoint theorem. Distance, I don't know how did the distance formula. I don't know. Distance formula, it's basically x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus 1 y1 squared, and then you put a square root. Yeah, technically you can use that. You just basically use a mathematical rule that would make sense. For me, I would think,
Sorry, sir.
yeah.
So for me, the way that I approached it, I created like something like a target row and a target column. And then I used the find feature function to keep track of the player row and to keep track of the zombie row. And then what I said is that I updated the target row to be the player row. And then
The target
and
row
then
to be the player's row. Yeah.
and then the previous player's row to be an empty space. And then I updated the zombies row to be the previous row's player. And then the zombies player to be an empty space. That condition will be only if the zombie is within the player's row -1 and the player's row +1 and column and the player's column -1 and the player's column +1. I don't know even if it's
Yeah, I think I kind of get you, but then there's a flaw in that approach. Let me show it to you. Let's say these are the coordinates, right? You have, let me do another coordinate system here. And then we have, yeah, let me put the player here. Right. Yeah, and then I'm gonna maybe put the zombie here and then put a zombie there, right? And then leave other locations empty. So let's assume, let me see, let's assume that the player moves from here up to here, right? This bottom left corner, which is here. Then obviously this will needs to be updated to an empty space because that location, the previous player's location, is no longer occupied. So we change it to a empty location, right? Which is the black dot. So now, from your understanding, you want to move the zombies to the previous location of the. Yeah, you technically are right, to be honest. That's okay. But then the problem is you might delete some zombies because if you move this over here, you're gonna have a zombie, right? So let me do this. You're gonna have a zombie here, right? And then that zombie is no longer inside this location, right? So it's no longer there. But then you said all zombies are moving there. So it also forces this one to also move here, which will override and delete this zombie. So you see some zombies just vanish into thin air. They go missing. If you do it that way, because yeah, if you do it that way, let's say you try to avoid deleting some zombies, you see that you will only move one zombie. That means only one zombie follows the player. Here, I think they want all of them to follow it. So you'll be right, but not fully right, if you get what I'm saying. So if you check here, what does it say? Once a zombie is within the cell radius, it starts following the player. Let me see the diagram again. Yeah, it is both of the zombies that are within the square radius. So they should start following the player. So yeah, they should start following the player. So to check the square radius is simple. We use the player's location, right, as the reference. Then we start from row -1 up to row +1. And then we start at column -1 up to column +1. Then that's our loop, right? That's all. Those are the two for loops. Then within those two for loops, we do an if statement. I'll write it just now. Then we do an if statement. Then that if statement, we check if we found a zombie, right? Meaning within the square radius, we found a zombie. Then if we found a zombie, then we need to update the player's location we need to update zombies location to move closer to the player's location. But you need to do that after moving. If you check, I think in our code we do call the update function after moving, right? After move player, there's the update. Yeah, perfect. So I will still write the code inside the update function that moves the zombies closer, right? But then you need to make sure where you call the update function. You need to call the update function after moving the player. Because if you move it before moving the player, it'll actually delete the player. It might actually delete the player. So you don't want to do that. So you want to do that after moving. So after moving, yeah, what's your question? We ever had a question? So move zombies closer to the player. And this should be inside the update function. So I'll do it after place. Remember, they said you should move zombies in a random location. This is tricky. Do we move the zombies in a random location, or we actually only focus on moving them closer? Oh, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. We start by moving them in a random location. If that random location they've moved in is within the square radius of a player, then we move the zombie closer to the location of the player.
Okay, so Mina said like what I did is that
Okay.
I
Just give me
oh,
a sec, guys. I'm coming now. Okay, I'm back. You were saying?
oh so like Mina, what I think we should do is to loop in each row and column and then if the array like at that specific row and column is equal to the zombie, we calculate the distance, and then after calculating the distance, I think like we should also have a constant for the radius space and then we check whether that distance is it less than or equal to the radius space.
The radius. So you're using a radius approach. So what you're, if I'm getting it correctly, what you're suggesting is like we're gonna have a game, and then this square radius you need to create a specific radius, like a radius constant, and then we check if sort of like probability. What is this? Chance, sort of like chance. You say less
Sort
than or
of.
equals to. Then this whole thing represents like the square radius.
Yes.
If that works, me, as long as it works, that would work. That works for you. For me, I'm using simple maths like midpoint theorem.
Okay.
Yeah, because if you remember midpoint theorem, right? If you have, you see, can't I create a new? I don't even know how this thing works. So let me close it and open it again. So for me, right, if you remember midpoint, you have 2 points. Let's say 2, 3, and then 1, 2, something like that. So you want to find a point that's in between them, midpoint. So you can think of this as like the previous player's location. This is the player's new location. So you see that it always follows. It's always going to follow because I'm always going to use midpoint. So it's always
Oh,
gonna so
okay.
it's always gonna follow it, irregardless of where that position of the player is. So, and we also need to check because we might also try to move into other zombies, right? What if it's occupying the same midpoint? We can do all those
Okay.
checks. We can all those do all those checks. I don't know about the distance one. I kind of get it, but I
Okay,
also
fair.
don't get the distance one that Dr. Stung is talking about. Me, I prefer using midpoint because it will still move closer to the player. But then let me see in the
And then
question.
like say, and then
Yeah,
like say I still have to cast cause like my midpoint like might be a double.
yeah, you
And I
need to
don't think
cast. Yeah,
cast okay. Yeah, I think I get it.
yeah, you can cast. Let me see. You can cast, right? But then remember, we talked about. I don't know if I talked about it with you guys. I doubt. I think I talked about it with the ComSci 2A students when you're doing beginning in introduction to Java, because it's similar to C++. You guys would do that in ComSci 2A. It's exactly like C++ with slight changes and much easier than C++. And there's no pointers in Java, so easy work. So we were talking about something that we call a processor inside a computer. It's basically the brain of the computer that does the maths. So for example, if you say 3 divided by 3, the processor does the maths for that. So the processor, right? I was telling them that the processor, the way it works, you need to understand exactly how the processor works. It works with the same data types. So if you use two integers, that's why we get back another integer, of which would be the quotient. So it actually kind of rounds off automatically. So I don't actually need to cast. But if I had like a double and a double, for example, 3.0 divided by 2.0, this will give me back a double. Because
Okay,
that's how
so
that's how a processor works. The processor works like this. If you're doing division, you can only do division on both integers or both doubles or both floats or whatever. It needs to be the same type. Sometimes, right, you can use different types. Let's say int and a double. C++ or the processor, what it does, it chooses the one that's bigger and it promotes the smaller one to be the bigger type. You don't have to cast, it does it for you. So when C++ says this, it says, oh, a double is bigger than an int. So it treats this int as a double only for that calculation. It doesn't actually change the data type of the variable. It just treats it as a double only to do that calculation. Then you'd get back a double because you did arithmetic on two doubles. If you do arithmetic on two integers, you get back an int. So this leads to the conclusion that you don't need to cast if you are dividing by two integers. Because remember the rows, the coordinates, row and column is type int. So you get back an integer. There's no need to use static cast. It's redundant. So that's something you need to understand. The processor works with the same data types. So yeah, so that for me, midpoint makes sense. I don't know about distance. Midpoint for me makes sense. I'm trying to check. I'll get back to you. The one who raised their hand. I'm gonna get back to you. I want to see if the player moves into a random location, their health. When the player moves into the same location as a zombie, the player health decreases by 5. Yeah. So you can move into the same location as a zombie. Okay, that's okay. So yeah, I'll use midpoint. Yeah, to me, I don't know how I thought about it. I just thought about it now. For me, midpoint makes sense. What was your question? The one who raised their hand.
So we kind of like understand what Dumise is trying to say, Nessa. But we want to ask Dumise if his code his zombie is following the player or not.
You're saying Dumiso did what?
So like he said like the about the radius thing within a radius, how like he can make a zombie follow a player. So we kind of like understand what he's trying to like we want to implement this the way he's explaining. So we wanted to ask if he like a zombie is following a player or not. if like a zombie is following a player or not.
Yeah, that's the question you should be asking to me. So Akiri knows. Me, I'm assuming he knows how to write it down. Because like the whole radius thing, let me see, let me think about if it's within the radius, yeah, you can technically do that. But then my question is, how would you know what radius to use? That's the tricky part. Like, how would you know? Maybe if is 5.0 big enough or it's actually too small? How would you know? So you're
Sir,
gonna, yeah.
isn't the radius like within the square radius of the player? Yeah.
Is that what he
We are
means? It doesn't mean like a radius in maths, like that radius in maths that we're talking about. Like the radius of a circle is not referring to that one.
I get it.
Yeah, because then that's where my confusion was. If he's talking about the cell radius, like the square radius, then yeah, I get that, but I'll also apply that. Like, let me write the solution and show you so that you see what I'm talking about. I also do apply the one about square radius, right? I also do check because you need to check if you only move it if it's within the square radius. If it's not, you don't, right? But then it makes, let me think about it. Does it make sense? What this question paper, is it asking something that makes sense? I kind of doubt it. Something feels off. So let's say this. And they say must follow the player. Or only if it's within, oh yeah, it makes sense. Only if it's within the square radius. So let me do this. You might technically want to introduce another second array. You can do that. For example, this array stores Boolean, and then this Boolean would represent whether is true or false, meaning true it's within square radius, and false is not within square radius. You could do that, but hey, that's a lot of work because you need to allocate the array, deallocate the array. Then once you're done, then you can start using the array. And then yeah, it's just too much work. Like that's why I prefer midpoint. Midpoint it actually uses even square radius. The midpoint, let me show you. Let me explain the midpoint the way I'm gonna use it. This is the player over here. I assume there's a random zombie anyway. Then we check, do we have a zombie within the square radius? In this case, let's say this part over here represents a zombie. You see this, in this case, this zombie is within the square radius. So this would be the square radius, this part over here. So this zombie in this case is within the square radius. So whatever direction you move the player, it needs to, let me see, yeah, whatever direction you move the player, whether it's up or down or, yeah, we need to move the zombie. Yeah, we need to, let me see, yeah, we need to move because I'm thinking about it, it might actually be incomplete because what if the player decides to move here? Then what? The zombie moves into the player. I'm not sure about that. But the one that makes sense is if you move the player here or in that direction there. The zombie will most probably be in this location over here, right? Over this one. Or we can move the zombie into this previous location of the player. But me, I'll prefer using midpoint. I don't know. Yes, midpoint. That's the only formula that I'm seeing that makes sense. Obviously, you need to first check if it's within the square radius first. If it's within the square radius, then you can move the zombie closer to the location of the player. So let me try to do that. So let me see. Will I actually need to go through? Yeah, I need to go through all the coordinates in all the coordinates in the 2D array, one by one, right? Which is basically all the rows and all the columns. To be honest, right, I wouldn't advise doing this, but to be honest, you can actually do it here. You can mix the code. You can do it there. There's no need because we have a for loop that goes through all the coordinates over here. And we have a for loop that checks if I've bumped into a zombie. So you see, because I wanted to check first step, right? Check if you bumped into a zombie. If that's true, then you check if the zombie is within the square radius of a player. And if it is, then only then will you do the midpoint, apply the midpoint theorem. So that's the approach that I'm choosing. So let's try that and play the game a bit and see if it does work. So int r is equals to 0. We'll still use the square radius approach. So recworld.rows, and then for int c is equal to 0, recworld.calls c++. Then I'm going to check if I've bumped into a zombie. Check if I have bumped into a zombie. So if my array inside of my record structure, array world at the coordinate RC is equals to a zombie, then I know that I've bumped into a zombie. Then I test here, check if within square radius of player. So if, I don't know, you can create a function called is within square radius. I think you can do that. So yeah, so let me do that. Remember, square radius starts at exactly, let's say we're looking at the row. It's similar to is_in_world function, similar, right? But then in this case, we take in, yeah, it's similar. We take in, what do we need? The player's coordinate, yeah. We only need the player's coordinate. So we only take in two values, the row of the player and the column of the player. To be honest, we don't need that because remember why? Why do I say so? We keep track of the player's location in a record structure. So we don't actually need to pass that. We don't need to pass. Okay, we need to pass it because it's a separate function. But this function will actually take in I'll call it is within radius, right? You can call it is within square radius, but that's too long. And since we have a location, that's part of the game world, right? So I'm going to pass game and record. Then I'm going to use the coordinate of the player stored in the record structure. And I'm going to use const reference to make it faster. You can leave it as it is, but I'll just prefer to use const reference. So now what do we, let me put a comment here. How do we know it's within the square radius? If the row starts at exactly player row, player's row -1, and player row +1. So if it's in between these two locations, inclusive, meaning it includes player row -1 and it includes player row +1, inclusive. If the coordinate of the zombie is within this, then we know it's within square radius. So I can simply return here and say we're checking. Yeah, this is not only the parameter. I need to pass in, I need the coordinate of each zombie. So I need to pass in int, I'm gonna call it int row and int call. Like I said, you can just leave it as int row and int call. You don't have to be extra like me. I'm gonna use const reference. I'll just put const reference just to make it faster. Then I'm gonna check the row. Remember this, we said it's inclusive. So greater than or equals to the player's row. How do you find the player's row? It's inside the record structure, stored in the location variable. Location variable is a variable of type struct. So I need to say dot again. So dot row, right? So if the row is in between, is greater, is at least, it's at least the player's location -1, right? It's at least that. And the row is less than or equals to the player's row +1. So I need to do that. There's a lot of typing here. So record.location.row +1. And then we also check the column. We only check the row here. We need to also check the column. So I'm going to copy. Okay, I don't need to copy that because the moment you copy, that's when things go wrong. So let me just type it. And then I'll type it at the bottom line. Right, so say call, which is this column for the zombie, right? If that column is at least in between the column of what we know represents a square radius, which is based on the location of the player. So it's greater than, which is the same thing as for row, dot location dot call, but now we simply use column. And column is less than or equals to rec world dot location dot call plus 1, then semicolon to end it, right? So this would return true or false if it's within the square radius. Then I'll scroll down and you see that it's declared out slightly above the update function because C++ reads from top to bottom. And if you check something here, this is you see that this is kind of similar to is in world. It's technically similar. If you understand is in world, you shouldn't have any issues understanding this. Then here, right, and you see, you need to pay attention to where I'm placing the if statement. It's within the if statement where I found the zombie. So the zombie is actually stored at location RC. So I'm going to say if is within radius, and then I pass my record structure and the coordinate of that zombie, which is RC. Then this will return true or false. You could, if you wanted to, just say if it's equals to true, meaning it is true that it's within the square radius. But that's too redundant. You don't have to always do that. You can just pass the function. C++ checks what the function returns, and then it replaces that function with either true or false. So that's why I typically don't say equals to, because there's no point. You can still do it, but there's no point. And then yeah, I'll get back to you. And then once you've confirmed that it's within the square radius, then we do the midpoint theorem, right? To move the zombie closer to the player, right? It is quite a lot, because what if we are trying to move closer to a player and you are moving outside of the game mode? So you need to also check if it's in world. Yeah, it's quite annoying. So I don't know how, but we also need to check if it's in world. And there's a lot of if statements here. Yeah, what was your question?
Sorry. My question was it was about the is within radius function. I just wanted to know why we use the ands instead of the ors, because I think it's because it only has to be either, only one of the conditions have to be true, and which is either row plus one
no,
or
it's not either, it's both. That's why I use and. If you think about it mathematically, it should be both. For example, let me see. Okay, let me think about it. Row. Yeah, it should be for it can be one. Can be one. Can be. It's kind of tricky. Let me think about it. It can be one, but these ends, you see, these ones over here, they're important. The one that you're asking about, the one that we can change is this one. It could be an or. Could be an or. Let me look at the diagram here. So let's say I have coordinates here. Just quickly do this, and then let's say I have a player at the corner here. But the thing is, even though, yeah, that would make sense in a way. It would make sense. But then remember, we can never move the player outside the game mode. So I don't have to use or, because if you use or if you substitute end with or, in a way you're saying that there's a high chance of the coordinate being outside the game mode. So that's why I'm using or. So what I would do, right? I just came up with the trick right now. I won't use or, I'll be deliberate. So if the coordinate that I've generated is not within the game mode, right? I would actually move. Let's say it's at the corner, right? The player is moved to the corner, and I try to move the zombie, and I try to move it there. You see, if you try to calculate midpoint, you see that there's no midpoint here. And how can I confirm if there's no midpoint? Basically checking if it is involved. If the coordinate that I found representing the midpoint is not within is not within the world of my game, right? I will actually move the zombie into the player's location. Like it will actually bump into the player. Because remember they say that you can bump and yeah, where is it? Yeah, when the player moves into the same location as the zombie. They say the player, but remember the zombies follow the player. So they might actually catch up to the player. Think about it in like as in an apocalypse, right? For example, if there's an infection that's spreading, like the zombies, they can come to you and bite you and infect you, right? So which will affect your health. So the player's health decreases. So it does affect your health. So what I will do, I'll stick with end. I think or you can also use or. But then or if you use or, just know that you're taking into account that there's a high chance that this coordinate might be outside the game world. So you're enforcing it to be within the game world by using or. If you use and, you're still allowing that those flaws that the coordinates might actually be outside the game mode. I'm gonna leave that flaw there. And then that flaw, I'm gonna use it to my advantage. Basically, if there's no midpoint, I'll actually move into the same location as the zombie. Okay, let me see. Oh, I can do this. I have a trick. I can do this. Let's say for some weird reason, yeah, let's assume that the zombies can't move to the player. Let's assume these are the zombies. The player is at the corner, right? Obviously, the player has one empty spot here. So the player will move there. What we can do, right? If there's if the midpoint that I'm trying to generate is outside the game mode, I'll simply not move the player. So I'll only move not the player, the zombie. I'll only move the zombies closer to the player only if the midpoint that I found is within the game mode. If it's not, then I don't move the zombie. It remains still. So for example, if the player is at the corner, the zombies won't move. But when the player starts moving in that direction, the zombies start following. I hope that makes sense. Yeah, I'll stick to end. I'll just stick to end. So yeah, I'll just stick to end. You can use or. Remember, like I said, this is my solution. And if you check even the Dr. Stung, when he talks to the tutors, he tells them, guys, this is my solution. This is Dr. Stung's solution, of which you can reuse it as a reference a little bit, but doesn't mean that's how the solution should be. Because some people might phrase it in a different way. For example, you use distance formula for some. Don't know how, but yeah, some use distance formula. Because distance formula can work because you have 2 points, you have 2 coordinates. You can use distance formula. But I don't know how you can do that. Some people like me will use midpoint, but it does do the same thing. It solves the question. So it's not the solution, it's my solution, basically how I would approach it. You can come up with your own way. Even if you don't like me using and here and you want to use or, do that. As long as when you play the game, the game characters, the zombies move closer to the player. That's all that matters. So let's do the midpoint. So midpoint, I'm gonna need the player's location, of which, like I said, we always keep track of it in the record structure. You see, very convenient. So I'm gonna say int mid row. I'm gonna call it mid row. Mid row is equals to. You could actually create a function that calculates a midpoint and you pass. I don't want to be extra. Too many functions. I'll just type it. So I need the zombies row, which is R, plus the player's row, which is inside record. So record dot location dot row, right? Divided by 2. Don't make the mistake of saying divided by 2.0. Remember what I said, if the processor sees one of these, whether it's the numerator or the denominator, if one of them is a double, it automatically promotes the other one to a double. Then the overall results becomes a double. Then that would mean that you're trying to store a double in an integer, which would cause C++ to crash. So I'm going to just leave it as 2, not 2.0. And then int mid core is equals to C plus reqworld dot location dot column divided by 2. Then once I've found the midpoint, basically the new, this you can view this as like the new location of the zombie, which you're gonna use midpoint theorem, because you're gonna move it closer to the player, which will be like in the midpoint. We did demonstrate that. Then now I have the location. Now I check if location is in world. So another if, like I said, there's going to be a lot of if statement. So location is in world. Then we pass in the rows. Yeah, this is really annoying now. There's a lot of typing here. If this is the standard, hey, y'all are cooked. If you, like I said, you guys don't take my advice. A lot of you don't take my advice. Dr. Stung is not your friend. He's not one to be played with. That guy has cum laude in honors, cum laude in master. He's just passing and he cruised nicely. Undergrad, the top achievers left, right, and center in most ComSci related modules. And he reads the textbooks that are written in the learner's guide for each module. So he's not the type of guy, he's not the type of guy to make things easy. That's why I said you should take this thing seriously. You see how much thinking is involved here. And if anything goes wrong, I don't check if it's in the location of the world, the game crashes. It stops displaying. That's the problem with games in C++ first semester. If your logic is incorrect, the game stops displaying entirely. Then now you're gonna be stressed and be like, no, my game. Whereas, like I said, the main.cvp is not important. It's only worth 5%. If it's crashing, simply delete everything in the main, just output hello world, submit. Don't sacrifice 5% for 95%. So what location am I checking? It's mid row and mid core. I'm checking if they're within the game mode. If they are, then I move. There's quite a lot involved in this question. And I need to make sure that there's anything. I Dr. Stung, I gave up on that guy, man. Like, you guys are first years. Like, chill. C++ has never been this hard. C++, the time we did it, people would cram games and get top achievers. They'll get an award for that module. And they don't know anything. Because it is the same format. They will ask the same questions and they didn't like make it too hard. This is like sick test level paper, and this is the main. So yeah. Or maybe actually did, yeah, let me check. They do forget to change something. Let me check at the top here. Didn't he forget to change the date? This guy's slick. He is 2025. This is definitely a past paper. It's not. Yeah, this is a past paper. I wanna see which year. He didn't leak it. Sometimes they leak and they forget to change some details on the PDF. Hey, this guy is very thorough, né? Like he changed everything. Yeah, if you go ComSci 2A, they do make some mistakes. And you can see the paper that, oh, this is a 2023 paper, sick test or exam. So that you can see what I'm talking about. This was definitely a sick test. There's no way this was the main. I doubt it. This was not the main. I guess this is the level, the standard that you must expect. That's why he made it a mock test, so that you know what to expect. So I've confirmed that my location is within the game world, right? Which is that midpoint. But I only need to move the zombie to that location only if it's an empty square. So I might move into another zombie. So I need to check if it's unoccupied. So like I said, there's quite a lot of checks here. So check if the midpoint is unoccupied. Basically, it's equals to an empty space. So if reqworld dot array world at location mid row, location mid column is equals to an empty space, then only then can we now officially move the zombie to that location. So I need to move the zombie to that location. Obviously, you need to also change the previous location, right? So I'm going to start by moving the zombie. So reqworld dot array world at location mid row mid core is equals to zombie, right? Then the previous location is RC. If you still remember, it's RC. So record dot array world RC is equals to empty space. Yeah, I think now it should move closer to the player. Yeah, so there's quite a lot in the update. That's why they said UMO for update. There's quite a lot in the update. So my advice, since he has a tendency of asking UMO for update. When you get to the update part in the question, make a separate function for it. Don't put it inside. Don't mix it with move, because it seems like he structures things in a specific way. So create actually an update function always. Just create an update function. So don't mix it with the movement code. Just create its own function. So let's test it out and see if we are onto something here or we are moving in the wrong direction. I don't like this empty space. It makes my game confusing. Let me put back the dots. Instead of empty, let me use a dot. Yeah, because it's confusing me now when it doesn't have the dots. Yeah, this is bad. The zombies are what? Is this caps? I think this is the zombies, right? Totally forgot. And I deleted my things. I forgot which one. Let me see. Let me check this. We have yeah. So this is the zombie. The exclamation mark is the zombie. Okay. So let me check here. How many zombies do I have? I have 1, 2, right? And then 3 here. Only if it's within the square radius. So actually we need to move the player closer to the, if you notice, I need to move the player closer to the zombies or one of the zombies. So let's move, I need to move to the left. Let me move left. Oh, it always introduces some zombies, right? Okay, you see that there's no zombie within the square radius. You see, right? So let me move it to the right. So so it's within the square radius. So let's see if this zombie over here, it will follow the player. And it doesn't, yeah, it's gonna be tricky to, and then we also have these zombies. Okay, the ones that are within the square radius, it's only this one. So it'll ignore all the other ones. So let me move, I can move left or down. Let me move down. So let me use D. D is for down, right? Yeah. Let me scroll up. Yeah, you see it was here. I'm assuming it's the same one. It was here and then now it's here. I'm assuming it's the same one. Yeah, I'm assuming it's the same one. Yeah, I assume it's the same one. Yeah. The thing is, it's so hard to see this thing. Hey, let me move down a bit. Yeah, you see it was here and then moved to this location. Yeah, it seems like it is kind of following the player, right? And they said if you move into a zombie, you lose your health. So let me move up or down. So let me move up. So my health is 9. Yeah, so it decreased. It's a 4 because I've moved into a zombie, but it actually takes, and now I'm surrounded by zombies now all around. Yeah, but I think it's technically working. Let me make the game size smaller. But I think it is doing something. So let me make it 15 by 15. Right, 15 by 15. Okay, I was actually supposed to reduce that number. It's fine. Let's just put and run. Okay, let me zoom in. So let me move closer to the zombie, which is the exclamation. So right. But then I think it's not. Oh, the zombies also moved randomly. This game has a lot involved. I forgot. The zombies also moved randomly, right? But then, did I move them? Move one cell in a random direction, including diagonals. Yeah, including diagonals. Yeah. One cell. I might have phrased that, but I think it's correct. The movement for the zombies. I think it's square radius. So let's just double check the movement for zombies. Let me see. It's in the update function, right? So we introduced the new zombies, right? Based on the zombie chance, right? The zombie chance. And then there's a lot involved in this game. And then after introducing, we check the zombie. Yeah, my bad. This is wrong. Yeah. I'm moving it. That's why it moved closer to the player. It's not supposed to be close to the player. It's in a random. Yeah, it's in a random. They said in a random cell, right? It can be any cell. The question is what location are we gonna use? I will use the current location, which is the current location of this. Think about it. If you look at it from a diagram perspective, let's say this is. I'll use the coordinate of that actual zombie to move it using its square radius because I need the coordinates of the zombie because I said you can move one cell. So imagine this is the green is the unoccupied locations. So these are the unoccupied locations. So obviously, if the red is the zombie and I want to move square radius, meaning any of the cells. So as you can see, I need to use this location as my row and column, which is the location of each zombie. So I need to fix this instead of generating any location anywhere in the game mode. That's wrong. It needs to be square radius of zombie, which is RC. So from R minus 1, so that was a bit wrong there, my logic. And then R plus 1, and then column is C minus 1, and then C plus 1. And this will do it for all the zombies, right? And then I'll just, because I'm too lazy, I'll just copy paste this. Then copy this. Yeah, so it only move one cell, not anywhere in the game, but exactly one cell. And we'll keep on checking if that's the location we're trying to move to is not within the game mode. Okay, so I need to close this game terminal and then build and run again. So you see, this is where the locations are. So they're only allowed to move one cell. So let me move down. That's weird. I guess I messed up my logic with this, introducing this. That's weird, but then my logic is fine. So let me try again. So we should just leave it to move anyway. Because they said one cell, so it should be, let me think. Yeah, it is. I'm moving one cell, and if it's not equals to an empty space, meaning we need to move into an empty space. Yeah, looks okay to me. Yeah, this would be how you'd answer it. And for those who might be like, what if I don't, let me show you a simple trick. Do you know that if you don't touch the main, technically your things will compile? Technically. Let me show you a trick here. Let me do this. Delete everything, right? I'm gonna say hash include. Yeah, I'm gonna teach you this because there's a high chance you might not finish everything. So let me do the cout hello world. Sometimes cout hello world. Oh, using standard namespace. Using namespace standard. Like if you don't in the problems, you see that it runs, right? That's the only thing that matters. You submit. As long as you have the header file and everything. But then let me test something here. Let's introduce let's introduce an error there. I want to check something. Oh, it does complain a little bit about that, but then at least you won't have to worry about the game not printing. Just don't do the main. Just save yourself. Don't do the main. because the main is only worth 5%. Just print hello world and then you're done. You'll avoid a lot of errors, especially when it comes to movement and things like that. Because, like I said, they mark the logic, they mark the code, not the output. They mark all of the functions. All of this inside main is only worth 5%. All of it, only 5%. So there's no need to do all of that stressing and stuff. Okay, let me do this. Wait, this is update. Yeah, this is update. So yeah, probably the problem is update. Let me comment update. And you see that it's gonna start moving normally again. So yeah. Yeah, the problem is update, which is the new code that I've introduced. Yeah, so it's clashing somewhere. When it does this, right, and you don't know why it's stopping, just know that your logic, whether you are generating a random row or whatever, you generated in some way, I don't know, it linked somehow with other coordinate, the other game characters somehow. But in this case, it shouldn't because I do a check here. I don't know why it's crashing when I generate like this. And then now you see, it's weird. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, which is very weird. So yeah, need to do that to zombie and then we use this. Yeah, the logic looks okay. Did I check if it's in world? I did check. Yeah, I think that's what's missing. I think that's why it's crashing. I was supposed to also check if it's in world. So if it's not, but then this is not equals to empty space. It technically also checks if it's in world. Because as long as it's not pointing to an empty space, then it's not in our world, right? So it's not, so we keep on generating. So it's fine. It does actually enforce it to be in the game world. Yeah, I don't know about that. So I'll just put it back to the way it was. I don't know why it's refusing to do that. Did I? Yeah, I hope I didn't delete a lot of things. Yeah, that looks okay. So the new location we have a zombie, and in the previous location we have a empty space. Yeah, this is me. I would approach it using the midpoint. You still use square radius, but you also add midpoint to that same formula. Uh, move right. Okay, and then you can move up to lose point, and then move right. You lose points again. Yeah, health level. It's not confirming, but yeah, as you can see, C++ is very complicated, and then you can't have a full perfect game. Sometimes you get like it works. Here, I don't know now because I did check everything. You see, there's the health level, or maybe I didn't put it. Did I test here? Yeah, I did. Has won, has lost. I did. C++ is just being C++. I did put all my logic there. It was actually, I think before I introduced all the other things, it did work. Yeah, update is I think update in this question paper was the most complex one. So this is how I would approach it. You'd first go through every single location in your game, find a zombie. I think I'm also using a very high percentage. I'm generating too many zombies. I think that's another very big problem. The chance here, I think make it 2%, like very low, so that you don't have too many. Because now my game is full of zombies. So you see, it's still generating, but it's not a lot, not that much. Yeah, it's not that much. Yeah, so let me just double check the question about, let me see. When the player moves into the location as health. Okay, yeah. I get that. When the player, yeah. Yeah, so I was just confirming the player's points, the health. You see that the health, it doesn't change. They didn't say the health decreases by 1 every time the player moves. You see, there's nothing like that. It only decreases if you bump into something. So just confirming that. Yeah, this question paper is all over the place. There's a lot going on here. But yeah, if you have other solutions that you think you can apply or use, feel free to try that and then text me and let me know if that works for you. But then this is what works for me. I don't know what other approach you guys have. Yeah, we're supposed to also do the design. So let me quickly do the design, right? I'm not gonna go too deep. I'll just explain the structure. The design, right? Like I said, it's in between C++ and English. So you need to put a little bit of C++ and a little bit of English in there. So this is how I phrase it, right? You can phrase it in any way, right? Me, I'm gonna say for each row and then column. That's basically how you write it, right? And then if you check why did I say for each row? Because the first for loop goes through each of the row. So when I say for each row, a person who knows code, they will know how to translate that. You shouldn't write it in such a way that people can see it's C++. That's wrong. That's not what we call design. You need to write in such a way that even a person doing Python, doing Java, they can translate your design to their specific language, that the specific language of choice, the language that they are using. So that's something you should do. Then I also need within the for loop for going through each row. As you can see, I put the colon here to say that everything that I'm going to type here after the colon is part of this for loop. What's part of this for loop is another for loop, which goes for each column, and then colon, right? And then you don't have to, but you could also say next column, right, to signify that you move on to the next column. Then you have next row here. For those doing informatics, you might be getting some deja vu. So this is how I would phrase it, right? And then here, in between the for loop for the column, that's where you write the code. And how do you write the code? Every equal sign, you use an arrow pointing to the left-hand side. So this is the arrow you use. You use the greater than, less than symbol and hyphen. So every time you see an equal sign, you use that. And then all the other symbols like equality, like checking if it's less than or equals to, write them as it is. Greater than or equals to, not equals to, it's up to you, right? Because remember, you need to mix a bit of C++. I think not equals to, you can write it as the same way you write in C++. That should be okay. And then equality, like when you're checking equality, when you use those two equal signs. And the design, I think I would advise you to use one equal sign, because it shouldn't be too much of a giveaway that this is C++. That's what you're trying to avoid. So let's look at line 137. If you still remember, if you have time, right? Mind you guys don't have time. There's still, remember the template for design whereby you list your variables, data type. You can do all of that, but I wouldn't advise doing all of that. There's no time. Just simply translate the for loops of the code line by line. So we have random chance, right? So in C++, in design, you don't declare anything. As you see here, it's declared. When you type it in design, you don't declare it. You use it as if it's already declared. So random, chance, and then arrow like this instead of the equal sign. And then here you call generate rand int. And then you just gonna say generate rand int, passing 0 and 100. And don't put semicolons because it's gonna give it away that this is a language related to C++. You don't want to give that away. And then when it comes to the if statements, just say if I would advise you to remove the round brackets. You can still use if, but remove all round brackets. So you're gonna say if random chance. is less than or equals to new zombie chance, and then column, right? And then you do something under that situation. In this case, you're checking again. So you're gonna say if, right? So you're gonna say if again. Yeah, this is I hate the design. Design is you have to come up with the many ways to avoid people knowing that this is C++ or Java, whatever language you're using. It's kind of annoying. So you have rec world, the array world. Is it just that? How would you even translate this? Some things, right? If you're stuck, you don't know how to translate. I would just advise you writing it as it is. For example, here, I don't know how you can phrase that in something's in between English and C++. I don't know how you can do that. So I'll just type it as it is like that. Then I'm gonna say is equals to using one equal sign, right? Because I don't want to give it away that it's C++. And then I'm gonna say is equals to empty space. Right, and then empty space, then I'm gonna copy this and no semicolons, remember. I'm gonna copy it up to it's fine. And then paste. Then you replace all equal signs with an arrow like this. So this will be the translated version of the update function, but still we're only looking at the first for loop. There's 3 for loops, right? You can just simply do the other 2. You see that it's not C++, it's not Java. We can't relate it to any language, but we can somewhat read it, right? This means for each row and then for each column, then I initialize the variable to this, and this is people will read your code. Remember, it's other developers, people know ComSci. So they'll be like, oh, generate, this would probably a function, so I must create the function. And it depends on which programming language you're using. They should know how to create that function. Then obviously you need to also translate and type the design for all the other for loops, the second for loop and then the third for loop, because that's what is part of the update function. So you translate every statement in the update function into UML. Yeah, I think that should suffice. I think you get the picture. I don't have to like necessarily like do everything. Yeah, this I'll save this and send it to you guys. This will just save as template because most of the time in the semester test too, you don't have time. They won't make you do UML, full UML for everything. That's impossible. They can't make you do like from main.cpp to header file. You can't do UML for that. So they'll just choose a specific function. Maybe, I don't know, maybe allocate function. They're like, do UML for the allocation of the function, something like that. So they'll say model the what allocate logic or initialization logic. So they'll choose the specific function that you should focus on. Yeah, what's your question?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, my question is now, if they say throw it for the movement, let's say for a player, so just please help us like with the correcting UML activity diagram.
Like I said, the UML, there's really no, I'm just showing you like an example. There's really no like one way of writing it. If you check Dr. Stung, it writes in a different way. You check online, people who have PhDs in different universities, they do UML in a totally different way. UML is not about you seeing like me do it. I just show you the way I would approach it. You come up with your own way that makes sense to you. But just know that it's simply writing every single line in the function and make sure that that line doesn't look like C++ and that it also doesn't look too much like English. So it's in between. So if you look at the logic, you simply just write everything in the function. So for example, switch statement, like an if statement, you're just gonna say, for switch statement, I would phrase it in this way. I would remember, I'm just showing you my way of approaching it. I would say, select from something like that, then I pass in the variable name that goes into the switch statement. Then I'm gonna have case, blah blah blah, then case, blah blah blah. I won't put the breaks, because if you put breaks, like I said, things that relate to code, you shouldn't put them. Then I'm gonna have case, let's say case 10, colon, and then I do something here. Maybe I have another if statement, if blah blah blah, colon, then do something and so forth. It shouldn't look like English. It shouldn't look like English. It shouldn't look like C++. It should be in between. So obviously, you know how to initialize this. You simply replace every equal sign with an arrow, and you don't type int. You don't declare them. You don't declare variables in UML. You simply just use them. You can remember that diagram in the template of the design that they gave you on Eve. The variables need to go there at the top. So whatever every variable you've declared only inside this function, remember you're only focusing on the ones you declared. For now, just don't worry about the parameters. Okay, the parameters you can also state. Yeah, it's fine. You can list all those parameters and you say we have a game, we have record, which is of type game reference. We have direction, which is of type const direction reference. Then we have p row, which is of type int. We have p call, which is of type int. D row, which is of type int. D call, which is of type int. You can list all those variables. Then you do a switch statement like this. With switch statement, I wouldn't also advise using switch. You could use, like I said, people do UML different. Some people still use switch, but then they remove curly braces and things like that. And break keyword, they remove it. And no more semicolons. Don't put semicolons because it'll give it away that this is C++. And then this is still the same thing. You see, if statements. I showed you how to do if statements. So all of this is still if statements. And then if you have two equal sign, replace it with one. That's my approach. Like I said, that's my approach. You might still want to use the two equal signs in the UML. That's okay. As long as it's not too obvious in C++, because there is some language, like quite a lot, languages that use two equal signs. So it doesn't actually give away that it's C++, but you can still use that. It just depends on your approach. Me, I just showed you a template. You just try and, like, when you ask me for something, right? When you ask me, say, how do you do this? I'm just telling you what I feel like writing, if I'm being honest with you. So I don't know if Dr. Stung is chilled with that. I don't know. Because, like I said, UML is like free. If there's no formula for UML, you write UML that makes sense to you. And make sure it's going to make sense to your tutor. That's all. And you make sure you don't write C++. You shouldn't type C++. No semicolons, no equal signs. All equal signs. That's the easiest thing to remember. All equal signs is change them into arrows. And switch statement, you can still use switch keyword, that's fine. Or you can say select or choose. I don't know, you can use a different word. Maybe you don't want people to know that this is a switch statement. So use the word choose or select, because we are actually selecting. So we are selecting from this variable these values. So if I found that it has the value up, then I do this. If it has the value down, then I do that. So in terms of the UML, it would be like this. And then if value up, right? You can say case up. It's fine. You can still, when it comes to constants, right? It's fine. You can still use constants normally, right? That's okay. You don't have to worry about, like, will the user and the people reading my design, will they understand? That's fine. You can still use constants. And then if statements, we did talk about that. So you're just gonna say case up, colon. It's fine. You can still use the same colon. It's okay, because if you don't use the colon, what else can you replace with the colon? You see, there's no substitute for colon, so you still stick to colon. So case, colon, then you type whatever. Don't put break keyword. don't put curly braces. Remember, this is a design, not code. So don't worry about it. Will it compile if there's one statement? If I don't put curly braces in a case, that's not important. What's important is they want to see you model this in design form. So for those who did, everyone did English. A design is like what you call a rough draft before you start coding. To be honest, when you're doing semester test 2, it's actually more logical and it makes more sense to start with the design. Because like I said, it's a rough draft. It's a plan of exactly how you're going to solve that specific question. If it's the update function, you plan on how you're exactly going to implement the update function. Then when you start coding, you don't think. You simply transfer the design to code. That's it. That's basically the whole point of the design. It's like a rough draft. It's like you plan, oh, I'm gonna write code like this. For example, you have the rough draft. Oh, for each row, that means for int r is equals to 0, r is less than rows r plus plus. That's how you've translated this to code. So that's the whole point of the design. There's nothing else I can explain. The rest, like I said, when you ask me about something, I'll just show you how I want to do it, and I can't possibly show you everything because I'm just playing with it. You must use your brains too. I can't be just telling you because you won't be there. You won't be like, say, I won't be in the venue and be like calling my name. Say, can you tell me how do I? No, I won't be there. So you must learn to be also independent in your thoughts. So UMO is not about the actual paper. I agree the paper, that's understandable. I need to show you the solution. But UMO, that's a you. Okay, that's a you problem, right? You need to phrase it in such a way that it's a design. You, right? That you need to do that. And UMOs are gonna be different from everyone. Someone might say, I don't know, someone might say for each row, someone else says for each row R, or maybe for each row call it R. That's their way of phrasing the UMO. There's nothing wrong. All of you are correct. As long as it makes sense to me who's reading it. And it's not code. You see, it is not code, it's not C++. It's English. It's in between. It's not necessarily English because remember a statement in English ends with a full stop, right? So we don't have that. We don't have a full stop, we have a colon, and there's no order here. So this is not English. It doesn't follow the rules of English. So it doesn't follow the rules of English. It also doesn't follow the rules of C++. So it's neither. It's in between. As long as it makes sense. And then here for each column, some people might actually phrase it this way. I don't know. You can say for R, I don't know. You see now, I'm starting to go on. I'm complicating things now. Let me not do that. Just me, I'll just do it this way. For me, this is the simplest way to do it. You just say for each row, for each column. Then here you're gonna have next column, next row. That's pretty much all there is to design. Whether you are doing main, they teach you to do main.cpp or a different function, still the same. Just replace those symbols with symbols that are less likely to look like C++. They look like just normal, something normal. If you have assignments, if you have code in your functions whereby you're assigning variables, replace all the assignment operators with an arrow. The other comparisons like less than, greater than, leave it as it is. And then if statements, we talked about that, you just simply remove the round brackets and then you add a colon at the end. That's how I would approach it. I don't know, doubt Dr. Stungu showed you, but this most probably did it in similar way. Slightly different, but similar way. Yeah, so there's nothing else to show here with the design. Yeah, trust me, you will get your full marks as long as you've translated it to something in between English and C++. You'll get your full 10 marks. Yeah, it's not about, no, it needs to be 100. There's no such thing as 100% correct UMO. There's none. Even if you go in the industry, there's none. UMO differs. It's up to you, the person who's writing the UMO. It just needs to make sense to your colleagues or to your group members if you're working on a group project. Yeah, yeah. Any questions?
Yeah. So for submitting, you said something at the start, like when we still have sessions. Now I forgot, like submitting this design into PNG file. What? Yeah, those
You
stuff.
just go inside here, you go to file, you click on file, and then you click on save as, right? Because you want to save it as a different extension, right? A different type of a file. Then you scroll down to you look for browse. Then you click on browse. And then when you click on browse, it will show you what type of file you want to save. As it's in the part save as type, what type of a file. They told you that they want PDF. So you're gonna click here and you see if you scroll up, let me move this a bit down and then click again here. You see, you'll see the PDF or .pdf format. Click there. Now it will save it as a PDF. And then you're done. So you don't need internet for that. So if they catch you doing it, be searching something other than going to Eve, or you don't need Ulink, so you only need Eve. If you're using other things, they might take your confiscate your paper and kick you out of the thing and tell you to come back next year. And then to give it a name, you just simply delete here and then you type the name here. And then you save it in the location you want to save it. Let's say I want to save it on desktop. So you put it on desktop, right? And then save. Automatically, it opens the document as PDF after you've saved it. As you can see, there's the document. If you want to see where it's saved, you go to where you've saved it. There's the PDF. And then you simply put it in the docs folder. I think it's in the docs or SRC. Don't know. You guys be.
I was talking about the put it into a PNG file.
The UML. Are you gonna use Deer?
Yes.
Well, if you check here, now let me see the entire. Create a program design, the entire design, including YAML, must model the zombie update logic. Yeah, I get what you're saying. You can, because the UML is in two parts. We have the UML itself, which is that diagram inside the yeah, there's that part. Then there's the part that I was explaining right now, which talks about the logic. I'm not sure here. It's either they want only the UML, which is a diagram, and you leave this, you don't do this, or they want both, or they want one of them. Like, it's confusing. But in this case, I'd advise you to always do both if you can, if you have time. Most probably won't. So you're gonna have UML. Time flies, you'll be shocked. I know you're asking about design. There's a lot of you who won't do the design because of time. You might not even finish the question paper. So yeah, because a lot of you, for some reason, you guys type slow, like really, really slow. And 3 hours is not a lot. Trust me, it's a lot when you hear about it until you're actually in the venue and you start typing and you realize 3 hours is small. At least if they gave us 5 hours, 3 hours is a small amount of time. So you're gonna do your UML, right? Blah blah blah. You drag and drop. They say you also do this. They say you had the time to do this one. If you do this one, then to save it, you have to go to file again. And then you click save. You can click save as, but I wouldn't choose that. It tends to have these problems. You're gonna click on file and then go to export, right? And then simply choose PNG for image. So I've chosen export, right? Then it shows you this. Then first things first, you must choose the location of where you want to save it. I'd advise you to always put it on desktop Then you drag and drop and put it in your project. So I'm gonna save it on desktop. But then by default, there's another extension. We want PNG. So I'm gonna click here at the top, the bottom here, where it says determine file type. I'm gonna click here once. Then you see that I'll see Cairo, PNG, Cairo, blah blah, all these file extensions. I would advise you to choose Cairo. This one never fails. I don't know about the other ones. I think sometimes the other ones don't work. So I would advise you choose Cairo at the top, PNG. Then you can rename the image, right? Let's say I rename it UML. And then you click save. And then done. You have your image. And then you simply go to where it's saved. As you can see, there's the image. I'm going to open it. In this case, for me, it's only a dot, right? Because that's the only thing I put. So there's your image. And then you drag and drop it and put it in your project. If you want to mix, right, I wouldn't advise you. Yeah, it does usually have that feature. That's if you use the template. Let's say you in your design, right, you want to also add the UML, right? Which I think what the question means by UML is this diagram over here. Then this other one that I'm doing right now, it's not. It's it's pseudocode. Yeah, it's pseudocode. So in this case, yeah, they might ask you for pseudocode. I don't know how Dr. Stung will set the paper. He must say UML. Okay, here it says the entire. They have high expectations. They're gonna do everything. They said the entire design, do everything, including the UML, everything. Just do everything, but only for the update logic function. So you need to list all your variables, all this, what do I do, the diagram. Like I said, you're not gonna have time for that. You will see tomorrow, right? You're not gonna have time for all of this. That's why I don't pay too much attention to the design. I'd advise you focusing on the bonus. If you can get some points on the bonus, you save yourself a lot of marks. So let's say you want to insert the image. You must choose an empty space. You see, there's the cursor. It's blinking on an empty space, right? Because it's gonna paste from where this cursor is blinking. So I put it in an empty space, then I click on insert, and then go to pictures, and then this device, because it's saved on your computer, right? It's saved on the device you're using. Then you're gonna click on desktop where you've saved the image, and then select the image, and then click insert. There's the image that has been added to your diagram. Then once you're done with the full design, obviously you're gonna save it as a PDF, just like I've showed you, and then you submit. That's pretty much the flow. So let me save. Yeah, it's I thought in this they're expecting a lot. They said the entire design, so everything. If you remember that template on Eve, they mean fill that whole template, fill it up. No part will be left empty. That's the full design. So even including using Dia. So you're gonna need to use Dia, use Microsoft Word, use code blocks. There's a lot going on. Hey, there's a lot going on. Hey, me, if I were you, I would skip. I mean, I wouldn't touch the design. I would focus on I would try to get this 10 marks under bonus. So bonus, right? You get bonus if you've used enumerations. I think even record structures. Oh, okay. It's by C. Let me see. C++11 features. There's a lot like type def. I think type def is a C++11. Yeah, if you use type def, you might probably gonna get bonus marks for that. Enums. So instead of using multiple constants, declaring multiple constants, and you use an enum, there's marks for that. So it's part of the bonus marks. Let me see how many bonus marks they allocate. Yeah, 10. You see what I told you? Neglect the design. Leave it. Don't even touch it. Go to bonus. Basically, bonus is part of your coding. So that means in your plans when you're coding from start, just start with the record structures, enums, C time, use C asset. Asset, you see assertions, it's also bonus. Include assertions. So that 10 marks that you're gonna lose from design, you get it back from bonus. Then you do your bonus. You don't touch the design. If you still have time, you might add a little bit of design, maybe get 3 marks, 4 marks, so that you manage to maximize the marks. You see, there's use of assertions. There's okay, use of assertions seems like it's mandatory. Yeah, it's mandatory. It's a must. But then bonus is like what would bonus be? Because pseudo random number generation says marks for that, so that's not bonus. Yeah, just use enums, right, and record structures. Even though record structures are also mandatory, it's a must for you to do them. Yeah, as you can see the mark sheet. Now, do you see anywhere where it says output? It does, right? But then look at the output. It's just 5 marks. But majority of the time, you see that these are functions. Allocation, 5 marks. Initialization, 5 marks. Deallocation, 5 marks. They're looking at the code, not the output. They don't care about the output. They're trying to see if you guys can think. You've mastered, then you can apply the things you're taught in C++ to solve a specific problem. Then they can give you marks. So they're just marking the code. So when they mark, they'll just literally do this. They'll go, okay, Snetemba. Let's see Snetemba's code. She did create game function marks for that, 5 marks. Convert marks, movement marks, display marks, update marks, marks. Oh, 7 summer structure, 5 marks. Structure, okay, still 5 marks. Enums, bonus. This bonus. That's literally how they mark. They don't even, most of the time, they don't even run your code. They don't care. Like run it as in like test it. They're not gonna do that. They don't have Nibaning. You guys are a lot. It comes like probably over 250 students. You guys are a lot. Imagine in the higher around 6 tutors and around, I think at most 6 tutors per module. 6 tutors trying to mark 250 students. You think you are special. They're gonna open your game and play until it says game over. They don't have time for that. They'll mark functions, they'll mark code. So that's why I also advise you to put comments here so that when the tutor sees, because they won't run your code. When the tutor sees your comment, oh, checking if it's within radius, oh, midpoint, oh, look, oh, okay, marks. They mark your load, they give you for correctness, for logic. Then 5 marks, right, comes, you see that most of the time they don't care about a lot of things. Where's that part? Logical correctness, you see? Logical correctness. That means like the code you've written is correct. Basically, to move the zombies closer to the player, your logic was correct. If it's correct, you get those full marks. If it was somewhat correct, you get like 3 out of 5, something like that. So that's what that logical correctness means. It means your approach to place the player, your approach to move the zombies closer, your approach for chance, that the correctness did you write the correct code? They're obviously going to use it, a memo, Dr. Stunga's memo, but then it doesn't mean that's the full memo. They'll just use it as a reference in a way, like, okay, Dr. Stunga approached it this way, so we need all students to approach it in a similar way. If you approach it in a totally different way, that's when you start losing marks, because that means you're on the wrong track. You're moving in the wrong direction. For example, this is how random chance is supposed to be done, right? Then all of a sudden, you don't even, I don't know what you'll be doing. Let's say you generate a random number between 0 and 1,000. There's no such thing as 1,000%. So you see, you lose marks for correctness. So they check code. They don't check output, they check code. They just, you see what I'm doing right now, scrolling like this. That's literally how they mark you. Upper bound, blah, blah, marks, place feature, unayo. It's there, create game. Oh, initialize the record values and record structure. Oh, they're also using your comments. Oh, this is we're allocating. Some teachers don't even know what's going on. They're just depending on your comments too. So you can technically kind of lie to them that this code does that, even though it doesn't do it. You're like, you didn't get that advice from me. You can just technically write like, yeah, it places health supplements. That time it doesn't. Like it doesn't place it, but you wrote the comment, and when you run the game, it prints something, or even if it doesn't print, as long as it doesn't crash, because they're gonna try and build and run and see if it's not gonna crash. If it doesn't crash, cool. then he continues marking. That means he doesn't need to cap your marks to 40%. So yeah, this is the easiest test. I don't know why you guys have anxiety. This thing is easy. You know, you can get 80% with no output. And then if you're smart enough and you found the logic, you understand the logic, you can get like 90 something percent with no output at all. Remember, main.cpp is basically 5 marks because that's the output. Because in order to get output, you need to do main.cpp, right? So if you didn't do main.cpp, that means there's no 5 marks. So you lose 5 marks there. So don't worry about input. What is this? Output. Don't worry about main. Main.cpp, just leave it. Just don't worry about it. Don't stress too much about it. Only if you've solved everything and you compiled and everything runs, you have no issues, then you can attempt main.cpp. But if main.cpp introduces problems, just simply delete everything, put it back to the way it was, and only print hello world. Done. Submit. You see that you'll pass the test. No, you might even get exemption because I think exemption is like 75%. So you can't tell me that you can fail to get 80% if you know majority of the stuff in the game. So yeah, don't waste your time on unnecessary things. The main, don't worry about that. Focus on all the functions. They mark functions. Do you have? Don't use my way of naming it. Use the Dr. Stunger's way, like allocate, game, deallocate. Call it that. Because remember, you're trying to make it easy for the tutor. They don't have time. They need names that make sense. You can't create a function that's called build. What are we building? You see, now you're confusing the tutor. And the tutor is probably having a very bad day. And then you piss him off. Then he takes out his frustration on your marks. And then you come back and like, this is not my marks. I know what I wrote. These are not my marks. And you're right, but you're not, you're very, you're less important. You're just not gonna be like, nah, let's remark. Who are you? Like I said, make things easy for the tutor. Your goal is to make the tutor understand your code. Like they shouldn't face any problems with your code. Put a lot of comments. This is a function for allocating my game mode. This is a function for deallocating my game mode. Comments, comment. Then the tutor is gonna be like, oh, fast, oh, update. This is a function to update my game mode. Let's say even if you call it destroy world, just make sure there's a comment function to deallocate the memory. Then the tutor will be like, oh, this deallocates. Okay, cool. Marks for that. And then it goes here, oh, random general. Oh, there's a comment. This is for random generation. I don't know. Some tutors totally have no clue. If you guys know very well when you go consult, he's gonna be like, I don't know if this is correct. Let me check the says solution. He confirms on Dr. Stunger's solution. Are they similar? Okay, they're similar. Mark. And then he looks for place feature. Is it similar to sales code? And let me look at sales code. There's tutors who don't know anything, especially about C++. They know nothing. They just made it to honors by chance. So yeah. Yeah, I think that would be it. Yeah, I've been yapping a lot. I think I gave you now guys enough advice. Start by creating all those functions that are needed because each function has marks. Use record structures, use enums. There's bonus marks for that. And then yeah, make sure you include all the header files, everything. And type def, also use type def, very important. And then namespace, and then implement functions, everything. And then main, you do that if you have time. If you don't have time, because main is only worth 5%, right? If you have a little bit of time, let's say you have 20, 30 minutes or so, I would advise you to actually do the design than doing main. Because design is worth 10%, main is worth 5. Use your brain there, the maths. Obviously, you're gonna choose the one with higher marks. So you do the design. Even though you attempted bonus and everything, the design is higher marks than main. Then you go and do your design. And then, yeah, wherever you left off the design is fine. Just submit whatever you can. like I said, if you have enough time, a little bit of time, you can attempt design so that you get some marks, not necessarily 0, get some little bit of marks. Yeah, you can get a little bit of marks. In the design, maybe they give you 5 out of 10. That's a lot, 5%. And then on bonus, maybe you get 8. That's if you use majority of things that count as bonus. You should get full marks. They always give you full marks for bonus. Especially if you did attempt the bonus, they always give you full marks. I've noticed. So bonus, you should get 10 out of 10. Then maybe design, you get a 5 or a 4, something like that. So at most you might get let's see, 90%, 95%, right? But 95% includes the 10 from design. So let's remove the 10, so 85%. So the most that you can get here is 85% without the design and without the bonus. Then you do the bonus, you get your full 10 marks. Then you're sitting at 95. So you see that you only need 5% from the design. You don't need the full marks from the design to get 100. So yeah, you need to use a strategy here. Don't be slow. Use a strategy. Do design bonus. Make sure you attempt bonus. If you don't understand, send an email today to Dr. Stung asking him, say, what counts as bonus? I know enums counted bonus, but what else? So that you know that you utilize all the bonus things that that things that count as bonus. You utilize, you put all of them in there. Or you can do this. You can go copy. You can do this, right? You can go to ChatGPT and say, give me examples of C++ 11, 14, 17, 20 features. Give me an example of that. You ask C++ to do that. You can also do that. I know there's also this thing. I know, right? It's really annoying, but there's also this thing called modules that also counts as bonus. But you don't need to use every bonus, right? Let me see. Technically, I think they mean modules here. That's the only thing that Say taught you. Like Dr. Stung taught you about modules. Yeah. So I think in this question for bonus, he wants you to use create a module and in enumerations because it says and or, right? Or and or. Yeah, it means either. It can be either or both. So yeah, so you see, you can get free marks here. They said like if the English makes sense here. As you can see, they said and or, meaning you can make use of both module and enum, or only use modules or only use enums. Just only use enums. Make your life easy. Just only use enums. The module part, ciao. It doesn't really ciao, but then I don't think you guys are ready because these two guys are still struggling with the basics. Yeah, so I wouldn't advise anyone to do that. Yeah, in enumerations, just use enumerations. Yeah, that's pretty much all you have to do. That's what I can say for now. Yeah, let me stop recording. Any other questions?